What's up, YouTube? I want to talk about college and autism, and we're going to talk about a lot of different issues here. But first of all, the most important decision is going to be which college you choose. Now, you want to go to a good school. You don't want to go to a place that doesn't bring out the best in you, and the crowd can be a really important thing. So first of all, I'd say go to a place where you find a subject that you are good at and that you excel at. And you don't want to mold yourself in something you're not. You don't want to be in a crowd where you're around the wrong people. And when I say wrong people, like if a guy with Asperger goes to a school, it's a party school, and he's around nothing but binge drinkers who want to dump alcohol down their throat, then there's a huge problem right there. At the same time, you know what? You also want to make sure you get the help you need. If you ever have trouble in a class, you want a disability services or a professor that understands you may have trouble understanding stuff. A lot of people's brain is wired one way and not the other. They may be very verbal and articulate, in their English skills, but they're not very analytical with math and problem solving. There's always both sides. And there's going to be people who are very verbal and understand words, but they don't understand concepts. And you'll find like a guy with Asperger takes an advanced chemistry or advanced rocket science class, and he flunks because he's maybe better at the math and the other technicalities, but he can't understand the directions in a lab, or he can't understand the materials on the test. And this is where also test taking can be a big thing too. The key is letting the instructors know you may have issues understanding information sometimes, or sometimes it gets confusing. Now, some instructors are going to say, it's not fair to the other students, I'm out for equality, I can't give you this extra information, that would be giving you an unfair advantage. So in those cases, what you got to do is read up on the material and then go to the teacher and say, okay, you brought this shit up in class. Where is it listed in the book? I've read the book and I don't see it. That's where you got to let them know. I am taking this lab. What do I do? After we have this reaction, because you got to get that stuff right. And that's where you go to disability services and you let them know specific things. And then that's where you end up coming out ahead. Now you might be saying, disability services did not help me one bit, and they would not budge an inch, they would not help, they just weren't on my case. And sometimes you have downer years, or you may have a professor that just won't give that extra time or is not approachable. They are in their own world, they are doing research, they just don't want to be bothered to answer questions. They think there's tutors that do that. Then you got to find a tutor immediately. And this is where, in a lot of these cases, people with Asperger have trouble academically because they have trouble focusing on something, or they have trouble understanding the technicalities to it. They may understand all the chemical mechanisms in the chemistry lab, but the actual instructions are harder, and it's oftentimes very confusing, and so organization can be a big thing. And now we get to the big part too, peer groups. This is going to be a big thing. Like in college, people that tend to get into peers and cliques, and there's certain things about it, like the guys with autism aren't always the guys that are immediately going to get all the girls in the first week, but they have the brains in most cases that they impress people a lot. So one of the keys is pick a class that you are good at and develop a talent. Don't pick some advanced, ancient English class or some weird class that you don't even have anything to do with, don't have any benefit from, because it just is a drag. And if you end up taking a class and the harder you try to understand it, the more you confuse yourself. Because then, if you're doing this in class, and then you're trying to be active in the class discussion, and half of the stuff you say is wrong, or even more than half is, then it's not going to look too good to the other classmates. So that's one thing, but it's also, a good quality crowd is the big thing. And finding a talent that you are really good at is also very important. because then you will become one of the more popular people on the campus. Now, on the other hand, there's always going to be times when disability services won't work with you, and they won't give you a chance. If you have a tough class, they won't bother. They'll say you're on your own. In those cases, you have to find a tutor. And that's one of the situations where teachers have to understand with autism, somebody's brain's wired differently. They may have a chemical imbalance in the head, and there's little things that make a certain subject more difficult for them. And so if a teacher says, well, get a tutor, oh, I don't have time to explain this, they need to understand that you have those difficulties. And at the same time, sometimes people with autism have breakdowns in college. Now, this is an important thing. Like, psychology can have a huge effect. If somebody is in a mental state where they are not stable or they are not rational, they have trouble absorbing information. And if they are extremely stressed out, they're more likely to make errors and forget something. And so it's important to be in a good mental state. And see, this is where, too, a guy with autism may be in a slightly neurotic state, but people around him don't even know he has autism. And they see that, and they're scared of it. People are stupid nowadays. They see one little thing, and they blow it out of proportion. So, mental state's also a very important thing. And if somebody is doing something in excess, or they're smoking, drinking way too much, having negative recurring thoughts, they have to get help. And that's a situation where in college a lot of people fall into that, and it's important to have good counseling services. And the best way to study in school is to take notes and listen to the instructions. Sometimes you may have to have a note taker, but it's good to listen to the lectures and find something you enjoy, because then you're going to enjoy listening to those lectures and they won't bore you to death, and you won't be in a situation where you can't wait to leave. And so it's got to be kind of a passion, and then you remember it very easily. So basically, it has to have something with the pleasure center in the brain, so you enjoy looking at the lectures and having the discussion in class, because then you get more out of it. And the biggest thing is build alliances. If you have other people in the class, it's a little more relieving to know that other people in the class failed the test. So you're not the only one having trouble. And when you can build alliances with people, it's easier for tutoring. And that's basically the key in college, besides the education, is building friends. So basically, it's my movie, and thanks for watching.